Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook with your host Edward McQueen and April Garner.
Good evening, April.
Good evening, Brother Edward.
I see you.
I see you too. It's good to be seen and not viewed.
I'm telling you, I really telling you, telling you. You know, we haven't heard about what's really going on in Conway in a long time, and you agree with, and I agree that our citizens just got to know by now, because there have been some new developments that I think it's going to have an impact that probably needs to be assessed by a lot of people. So by listening today and going over our program, especially with our guest today, we're going to see if we can't provide that what's necessary. Yeah. Okay. So April, let's. You want to talk just a short briefing on some of the things that you think Conway citizens of Conway need to know right now, okay? And in view of all the stuff that's going on, new developments and all that kind of stuff, and a host of things. We just haven't talked about in some forum because of the COVID. We haven't had a chance to gather and community meetings and stuff like that. So hopefully today, after today's broadcast, we can have a better idea of what to do, help and be informed for more decision making by our citizens. What do you think?
I think it's a great idea, but I believe we need to start by welcoming our viewers tonight. And thank you all for tuning in. And please make sure you share the post via Facebook, or if you're watching via YouTube, if you will share a link to the YouTube broadcast. And if you're on wcmagazine.net, let everybody know that it's also available or accessible on our website. And we also want to remind you that if you have any comments or questions for our wonderful guest this evening, you can certainly post them, and we will be sure to share them with our guests as we go through the discussion. So as Brother Edward said today, we are talking about what's going on in the city of Conway for a segment that we call, and Brother Edward, I think this is a very appropriate segment. It's something that, was actually the brainchild of one of our great citizens in Conway. And
you can call her name.
Well, I don't know if she wants me to call her name now. I got to, you got to be careful. You got to get permission sometimes. You have to have permission. That's right.
Well, she can send it on the comment side.
She can let us know on the comment side. Exactly. But this segment is called Around Town in Your City. Of course, what we'll be doing is, featuring special people, places, and things around not only just the city of Conway, but our viewing area as much as possible. So if you have some wonderful events happening or special people who we should be in contact with, even folks who can talk about what's going on in your city, please be in touch with Brother Edward, and we'll make sure that we make it a part of our programming, because after all, this is the World Community Magazine. And what we're trying to make sure we do is to feature everything that is going on, not only in our local community, but from a regional, state, and a national standpoint. So again, if you're watching today, be in touch with us around town in your city. We'd love to know what's going on and how it all aligns with what's happening with us here through the World Community Magazine. And so with that being said, I'm going to bring on our special guest for the evening. We have City of Conway City Administrator, Adam Emrick. How are you, Adam?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much.
All right. It's good to see you again.
If I can apologize right off the bat, this is something that I almost forgot to do. I was scheduled to be on your show months ago, and I completely forgot, and I still feel bad about it. So before we get anything else going out of the way, let me apologize for standing you up one time, and I hope it didn't cause you any too much trouble. But I owe you several appearances. Anytime you need me, I'm on.
Awesome.
All right. I've already taken revenge.
Awesome. Well, we're glad to have you back, Adam. And of course, when we were doing the radio segment pre-COVID, Adam was one of our guests and was always, happy to come to the studio to talk with us about what was going on in the city of Conway. And so we're glad to have you. And I'm sure COVID had a lot to do with why you probably forgot all about us, because everybody's been really busy. Everybody was busy in 2020 trying to adjust and make it through that COVID period. And we're still in the COVID period. Let's not get it twisted.
Absolutely.
Well, I won't make any excuses. I can't remember why I wasn't there, but it was not a good one. So
hopefully things are better now. And so the things that we are going to be talking about today, of course, are totally in Adam's wheelhouse. We're going to be talking about population growth in Conway, housing development and demand, new commercial opportunities. We'll get a few updates on the old Whittemore Elementary School redevelopment project or revitalization project or whatever we're going to call it. And then also we were talking pre-show, and we're going to just discuss in brief some of the flood planning for the future, and what we know about how the city of Conway pretty much has assessed what's happening with our flooding issues and what is going on to make sure that they stay on top of it. And then we'll give our audience a chance to ask questions and give us comments on other issues. And Adam's going to do his best to try and answer them as much as possible within this 1 hour time frame. So Adam, first of all, can you tell our audience a little bit more about what your role is in the city of Conway?
Sure. I'm the city administrator for the city of Conway. So I'm not elected. I'm a hired position by the city. I am the highest non-elected position within the city. So if you have any problems within the city, the buck needs to stop at my desk. My goal every day is to make sure that complaints don't get to city council, that they get to me, and we try to resolve them before they get to our elected officials. That's really my job, is to do my best to limit the number of complaints that reach the highest level, which is our mayor and city council. So if you've got a concern or comment, I'd like to see them first. That's my goal.
Oh man, don't be surprised if our viewers don't hold you to that. If the buck stops with you, that's pretty brave there. So,
I can't solve all problems, but I try.
All right. Okay. Well. Okay. So, Adam, if you want to, if you have anything else to say regarding that, would you follow up with what you just said, or before?
Well, just to give you a little bit more of my background, I was an attorney in Atlanta before I got into local government, and I came to Horry County, and I was a planner. I was planning director here at the city before I became administrator. So my background kind of goes from law to planning and now into administration. So that's sort of my framework. And I think what I'm going to talk about today, you can kind of see a lot of the planning aspects of behind that. I won't talk so much about infrastructure as I will the result of that infrastructure.
Okay. Well, we had a slew of topics. Well, we had some topics that all of us went over. And again, to our viewers, if we'd like for you to chime in, and send in your comments, your issues, so that they can be addressed within this hour. You may not want to hear some of it, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. Sometimes the responses are good, sometimes they're not. So, but anyway, let's start with the population growth.
Sure.
Let's say Conway. And I don't know, you can't speak for Horry County in terms, I guess, but you can speak more for Conway compared to other cities.
I can talk a little bit about Horry County too. Sure.
Okay. Okay.
So, we're in a census. This is the year the census data is supposed to come out. In fact, some of that data came out today from the state level. So I'm going to use 2019 data, which is, it's an estimate of where the census believes our numbers are and some of the demographics within that. So take that with a little bit of a caveat that when the new numbers come out, probably later this year, they might be different than what I'm talking about, but you can rest assured that those estimates are on pretty good data. Conway is the 19th most populated city in the state right now. We are just in front of Greenwood, just behind Hanahan. And we are the second fastest growing city in the top 20, only behind Hanahan. For those of you not familiar with Hanahan, it's just north of Charleston and the North Charleston metro area. Of the top 20 cities, only one city has a negative growth rate, and that's Sumter. It's growing It's actually losing population at about 2% a year. We are growing at 49% over this decade. So between 2010 and 2019, our growth rate is 49%. Hanahan, which I said is ahead of us, is growing at 50%. So that is an incredible growth rate in one 9-year period. And we're seeing that every day in what we see in the city. You're seeing it in traffic when you're on 501. You're seeing it when you go to Chick-fil-A and you sit in the drive-through for a long time. You're seeing it in the number of houses and the number of people moving here. That's the anecdotal evidence of the population growth we're seeing. But I've done some growth calculations as well. And what I'm using is, I'm using that 49% growth rate, and that's not scientific. I've got to throw a number in there to kind of give you an idea of where we're growing and how we're growing, and sort of give you an idea of where we're going to be. So if you use the same calculation projections, the same growth projections as what we've seen, we will be the 15th largest city in the state by 2030. So in 10 years, we'll move up to 15th. By 2040, we'll be the 10th largest city in the state with a population of about 57,000 people. To give you an idea, we're right now between 25 and 27,000 people. By 2040, we'll have doubled. That's crazy numbers. That's really hard to fathom. 57,000 people is a lot of people. Myrtle Beach right now is about 32. We will pass them at some point in the next 10 to 15 years. And some other things to consider here too. The metropolitan area of Charleston contains 6 of the top 10 largest cities in the state. So they're all in one geographic area. You've got Goose Creek, Hanahan, Somerville, Mount Pleasant, Charleston, North Charleston. They're all in one geographic region. They're all competing for land area. So at some point, their population growth is going to have to diminish individually because they're going to run out of area to expand to. What that means is we will likely pass some of those cities that might have a higher population rate or a higher growth rate than us, such as Hanahan. We're not going to catch Mount Pleasant anytime soon. They're at about 92,000 people or something like that. They've got a lot of people. But that metropolitan Charleston area is enormous. It right now consumes about 9% of the entire population of the state is in the Charleston metro area. For comparison, Horry County has a population of about 354,000 people. The metropolitan Charleston area is 467,000 people. So almost 500,000 people live in that metropolitan Charleston area. If you use the same growth projections that we're seeing now for the counties, using their growth projections, by 2040, the metropolitan Charleston area will have 708,000 people. So almost 750,000 people. Horry County, by the same standards, will have 613,000 people by 2040. That's a huge number for our county to experience growth. That's almost a doubling in 20 years, just like in the city of Conway. So we're seeing those numbers get bigger and bigger, and I'd like to say that I want to be accurate when I say this, and everything that we're seeing and what we're seeing in growth and development is sort of backing up those population numbers. So we could be off on the data on how we're predicting. Predictions are as you know, they are what they are, but what we're seeing is definitely indications that they're pretty accurate. To give you an example too, for comparison's sake, Charlotte right now has 750,000 people. So by 2040, that will be the population of Metro Charleston area, is basically the equivalent of Charlotte. Nashville has about 750,000 people. And Raleigh right now has about 550,000 people, which will be less than where Horry County will be by 2040. So we're becoming a metropolitan area. We are a metropolitan area. We're becoming a much more robust metropolitan area. That population number will mean big changes for not just Horry County, but also for the city of Conway and our residents and those who visit here.
So the metropolitan area when you speak of, that encompasses Loris, Ana.
Yeah, so it depends on how you define it. When I gave you that number, that would be just Horry County numbers, not a metropolitan area like the Beach, Grand Strand. The Horry County number by 2040 will be 613,000. Every one of the cities and areas within the county will experience growth at a different rate, certainly. But even right now, you're seeing Aner grow in areas that they've never grown before, and you're going to see that same sort of growth happen in Loris and Aner and Gallavin's Ferry and Nichols. Everyone will experience that growth as the density of the beach pushes westward into rural Horry County, and then into Marion County too.
So I think we're seeing a bit of that today. You know?
Every day, yeah.
Now, and I suppose that I don't want to jump to the housing development so quickly, but I guess all this coincides with each other, the population and then the housing development, and that's capped off with the shortage of lumber.
Yes. Yeah. So right now, you would expect to see a decline in the number of housing coming in, the housing stock, building permits, all that. We are not seeing that right now, despite the fact that lumber costs are astronomically through the roof. I can't give you any real stats on what the cost has, but I know they've gone up by 100% or more in some areas for construction costs in a very short window of time. Normally, you would see that increase in expense of materials result in a decrease in the demand or a decrease in the supply. We're not seeing that yet. We're certainly watching that and monitoring it, but we're not seeing it. We're seeing the housing continue to go. The number of permits in February of this year was the most permits we've ever issued in 1 year, or one month in the month of February alone, which is a short month. And again, that was during sort of one of the peak times of COVID. We would not have expected to see that at all, in that time frame, but we're still seeing it. And those housing permit numbers have not decreased at all. What has happened is the cost of housing has gone up in a short window of period of time. That is a concern as well. We monitor that as well. You want me to move on with residential? I didn't want to jump ahead.
I actually have a question. Yep. Adam. I've noticed that there's a lot of housing starts on the 9th Avenue off of 378 side of Conway. And that is something that is very different for that side of town. In the area where I live alone, there are at least, I would say, a half dozen or more housing starts along that 9th Avenue area in between Hill Street and up to Granger Road. And I'm just wondering, do you believe that is because there are people who are trying to build on that side of town because of the flooding, or, why has there been all of a sudden an uptick in housing starts on that side?
I really don't think it has anything to do with flooding. Well, it might have a little bit to do with flooding, but I don't think that's the reason. It's very expensive to take raw land and convert it to housing subdivisions, and it takes a long time. We have reached a point where we are almost out of subdivisions that are ready to be built in. When we have developable land, I'm thinking of several subdivisions right now that had about 20 lots that were approved in a phase, and all 20 of those houses are under construction at the exact same time. They're not building one, finishing it, moving to the next one. They're building the entire street at one time. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes that entire street is sold before they finish it. Mm-hmm. So what you're seeing is you're having builders that are having a hard time finding lots to build on, and they're buying infill lots within neighborhoods that are existing to finish housing that was never finished, to build on lots that were never built on. And that's actually, it's a healthy thing to see. It's limiting sprawl. You're doing infill housing, and it usually helps with the housing values with established neighborhoods when you're building new homes. Sometimes what that does is it takes some of the homes that are not well kept, not well maintained, and it helps push them toward being maintained, or it flips them into the market and gets them back, with a different owner, with maybe a new facelift on it or something like that. So we're seeing that infill. It's probably more of a result of there not being enough unbuilt residential lots in new subdivisions. So they're having to look for different opportunities in existing subdivisions that were never completed. And that, again, that's a good thing. It's better to have a house in the neighborhood than a hole in the neighborhood.
I can understand that. And we're also seeing a lot of housing starts, for example, out in the Sand Ridge area. Brother Edward, I don't know if you've seen that, but little corners and pockets where you would never think they could place a house. All of a sudden there's, 2 or 3 lots that are being developed. And just like Adam says, all at one time. I know there, for example, and I don't know who the developer is, but There's like 2 homes being built side by side in one area off of 9th Avenue and at almost the same pace. And so, I know that there are a lot of questions that are coming from residents in that area, wondering why all of a sudden, the uptick or the influx of new housing starts in that area, especially since that's something that, in my years of living there, you've never seen. We just never seen new houses built in our area.
I think a lot of it too is we have something like 2,000 units right now that are in approval stage of review. So that is, I'm looking at a map. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, about 20 different housing subdivisions of a variety of sizes that are in various stages of approval that will add new residential lots to the mix in the city. And they're all over the city. In previous times, you would see one neighborhood get built and then the next phase would come beside that neighborhood or another neighborhood come. We're seeing right now the pressures of the demand on housing coming to all areas of the city. And we are doing our best to keep those out of flooding areas, which I know we're going to talk about flooding in a little bit, but we can't stop someone from building in a flood zone. We can discourage them. We can regulate how it's done, but that is really the limitations on what we can do. So as we see these housing developments come in, we really try to steer them in areas that are upland, that don't flood. And that might be why you're seeing that is that one little caveat where you might be seeing some areas in your neighborhood that have not flooded previously. That's more desirable to buyers right now. They're not all buyers are sophisticated enough to know our history of flooding, but a lot of them are. And anyone who does their research knows that we are a city that floods. And so that if they want to move here, they need to do their homework and find an area that is likely to drain and not likely to flood. And that, the Sandridge area, it's a Sandridge area. It's going to drain well. It's got good soil. That's why it's called Sandridge.
There you go. There's a question from Priscilla Fuller. How does the city ensure that the new developments do not place a burden on infrastructures that exist now?
And that is a great question and a really hard one to answer. We evaluate this constantly, and this was a conversation today in my office with all these units coming in. We have to make sure that we can get a fire truck to you within a certain amount of time. It's part of our ISO rating, and we take it very seriously. It's a 5-mile drive on road, so it's not as a bird flies. We have to be able to get a fire truck to your home within 5 miles of a fire station that's existing. If we cannot do that, then we need to look at expanding our infrastructure to build a firehouse, which you're talking about $2 million to build a firehouse and $1 million for fire trucks. And then you've probably got $1 million in personnel. So that's a lot of money you have to put into that if you expand beyond a certain space. Or obviously we want police services to be able to reach everywhere in the city within a certain amount of time as well. So it's the same constraints. We have to be able to get a garbage truck to every house every week and a recycling truck to every house every week, a yard waste truck to every house and every week, and a bulk waste truck to every house and every week. And what that's meant is that we've had to be able to keep up with our fleet and continuously add trucks and add staff as we expand. If we get all 2,000 of these units in, if they were all to open up tomorrow, we would be in trouble. So what we have to do is each budget cycle, make sure that we're preparing our staff by upstaffing slowly as quickly as we need to, and also adding that equipment to be able to do the same thing. And that is a challenge on our council to be able to balance a budget while preparing for that growth. One thing you're going to see this year in the budget is an uptick in some of the solid waste removal fees. We have to have enough money to be able to buy a garbage truck with the money that we're bringing in. And prior to this year, we didn't. We were just getting by with our garbage rates. We were about $10 less than some neighboring cities. So we brought it a little bit more into line. We're not quite that high yet, but we're trying to bring it into line with what we have to charge to be able to provide those services to the folks that we have coming in. And we don't want to lose services either. We don't want to lose the quality of service or the level of service. So again, that question was a really good question to ask. And it's one of the hardest things that we do every day is to make sure that we're not losing some of the quality of service that we're offering to our residents as the city continues to expand.
You spoke of waste capacity. That's the other thing. Now, in your discussions with you and the city, are we talking about medium-term planning or long-term planning regarding sewage, waste, keeping up with growth? Do you foresee expanding our sewage treatment plant?
So one thing about the city is we buy our water from Grand Strand Water, and we buy our treatment of our sewer from Grand Strand Water and Sewer as well. So we don't treat any sewage in the city. We used to. We actually had a partnership with Grand Strand Water and Sewer years ago where we gave our sewage treatment plant to them as part of a contractual exchange. But the utility services is one of the biggest things that we have to keep up with. We are actually working right now on a $7.5 million expansion of our sewer line in the Crabtree Swamp area, sort of between Mill Pond and Church Street. We're adding a parallel line there, which will accommodate future growth both inside and outside of the city. And we were fortunate enough to get an economic development grant for that sewer line because we are very limited in our capacity with our existing line. Getting the sewer line as part of an economic development grant was because we cannot expand services beyond much past where we are. If an industry were to come into Loris or Green Sea or Ainer, they would not be able to get their solid waste through the system without that expanded line. So we had to be able to upgrade our system because all of that runs through the city of Conway before it goes to the treatment plants. So that's why we were able to get a grant for that, and it's a big concern. Getting water ahead of development is a big thing too. So we have a geographic area that the city services in both water and sewer. So if a new development is coming in, we have to be able to make sure that we have not only can get water to that development, but also that we can get a sufficient flow to be able to make it make sense. A lot of times that is paid for by the development community. We do not typically expand our water and sewer services into an area that doesn't have the demand from a developer who usually runs that for us. And that is a good way to partner with development to keep ahead of things. And we also charge impact fees on development based on the number of residential units that they have. So they pay what's called a capital recovery fee to the city that goes into a dedicated fund that can only be used for capital projects. So that is an impact fee that we charge on our development community to make sure that we're staying ahead as well.
So I suppose that the capital recovery budget of Conway or Horry County, then is that up to par?
Yeah, that's just for the city. You would always like any sort of fund like that to have more money in it. Yeah. And you know, I can't remember. We've got several $1 million in that, but really what we use that for, what we need it for, is when we have a big project like this economic development project. If we need it for the match, we have it there. If there's a water line break or a sewer line break, we have it there as a backup. And it really gives us the opportunity to be able to make connections where they make sense. And that's what we use that money for primarily. It helps us maintain the system once the developer puts in the infrastructure in place.
See, Adam, I told you that this information was going to be
everything's tied together. It really is.
Let's take a commercial break, okay?
Okay.
What do you think? All right.
We'll be right back.
Okay.
If you want to support Black-owned and operated businesses in the Grand Strand area and beyond, check out thenetworkconnects.com for a complete list of establishments in our local area. Our network connects Black businesses to community for a wide range of services, products, organizations, and resources that are viable in the African American community. You'll find a wide range of products and services that'll fit your needs, along with information about events and happenings around the local communities. Check out thenetworkconnects.com, connecting Black businesses to community. Thenetworkconnects.com.
And we are back. Thank you so much for watching the World Community Magazine. I'm April Garner with our host, Brother Edward McQueen, and our special guest, Adam Emrick, City Administrator for the City of Conway. And we had a great top of the show. Adam and I were talking backstage, and he was like, great questions. And I said, yeah, more to come. But also, it's so much to pack into 1 hour, and he's been giving us some great information. So I know that there's a couple of questions, Adam, that kind of piggyback on what you were talking about earlier. And Brother Edward, if you don't mind, can we get into those questions, and then we can move on to the other topics? Because like you said, it really all kind of ties together as far as, everything that we've been talking about. So Adam, you poignantly explained, what's happening with the city, the development, the growth. Brother Edward asked about the water treatment system and how that all plays into the development and the infrastructure and the impact of everyone who's moving in and the developments that are happening. And I know that some of our viewers may have questions about the cost and things that are going on. For example, Priscilla Fuller also has a question about the cost. And, there's some things that, we as homeowners or just the consumers don't understand about how the costs are absorbed or how they're impacted. So her question is, why can't these costs be absorbed by the developers instead of the current owners?
That's a great question too. And I'll stop saying that, I promise, after this, even though all the questions.
No, it's good. She has great questions.
So we are limited in what we can do as a city, and all cities in the state are limited in what we can do by what is allowed by state law. So state law allows us to charge an impact fee for development and on developers, but they limit how you can spend that money, on what you can spend it on and how quickly you have to spend it. For a city the size of Conway, if we were to charge an impact fee on a developer, let's say it was $1,000 per house, and the goal of that impact fee was to widen a road. By the time we collected enough money in that impact fee to widen the road, we would have missed our window of opportunity to be able to do so. So you have to spend that money within a certain amount of time of its collection. And we don't have the overall growth numbers yet to be able to spend the money in a timely enough fashion to be able to meet the state rules. So it's very difficult to charge what's called an impact fee in the city the size of Conway and be able to utilize it for the things that are needed. You cannot spend it on things like administration. So you cannot spend it on staff. So if I have to hire a new, like I said, we talked about a firehouse. If I have to hire 4 new firemen, I can't spend an impact fee on a fireman. So what we have to look for is creative ways to get revenue into the city, both through a combination of business license revenue, of property tax revenue, of fees that makes it user fees and things like that, that allow us to be able to balance the budget and be able to pay for those things that need to be paid for without the limitations that are placed on us by the state, and kind of be able to find our way through. It's unfortunate because development does not always pay for development. And that's also one of those things that we really have to work toward, being able to make sure that we're trying to do our best to balance it, because it may not be possible in all ways.
Yeah. Now, does the city assist with the cost of expanding a roadway into a development, or is that
that's paid for by a developer? Okay. The only way we are not in the road building business. The city is not. So to my knowledge, we've never constructed a road. We obviously repave them, we resurface them under contract, but we don't do it ourselves. If a road needs to be improved to make way for a development, the developer will pay for that. Where it becomes tricky is 20 years down the road, when the cumulative effect of a development causes a big road project to be needed, and there is not a funding source to be able to do that. We're seeing that in certain areas of the county, especially the Carolina Forest Boulevard and things like that. We will see that in Conway. We're trying to stay ahead of that with things like Perimeter Road, which I know is controversial, but we're trying to stay ahead of some of those pressures by getting that infrastructure in place before the development makes it too late. Cultural Road is one of those roads that we know is going to need to be widened, and probably by the time we get to widening it, it'll be after it should have already been done. But there's not a funding mechanism in place to widen Cultural Road, which is a state road right now.
But that's a saturated area in terms of housing development, isn't it?
And there's more coming. There's at least 400 more units coming to Cultural Road.
There's a question from another viewer. Will there be affordable housing? How many new subdivisions are in the 200s? Where are the high salary jobs? Because that's a good question. Yeah, two good questions. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Ironically, 4 years ago, I wrote the housing element for the city's comprehensive plan. And at that time, we did an evaluation of our housing stock and where it was compared to what is needed, what is determined to be affordable, which is, I think, 80% of the average median income. And we did not have an affordability problem 4 years ago. What I said in that plan was that we need to monitor our housing because we are going to have one at some point, and we are nearing that point now. So to get affordability within your housing stock, you need willing developers, and you need funding sources to be able to do that. Otherwise, you need to be able to write into your code a requirement for affordable housing, and that's tricky. It's tricky to manage, and it's tricky to try to convince the market rate developers that they should sell things below market rate. And so that is, again, that's an answer I don't have right now, but it's something we are monitoring and trying to make sure that we're accommodating. It's actually one of the things that we're looking for the site where the Whittemore School is now. We've got 10 acres there. One of the things we've talked about is whether we could do affordable housing in some combination of fair market there to be able to meet some of the needs of the community.
Well, let's get right into that then. Updates on the old Whittemore Elementary School project in that area. Talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. The original plan with the elementary school was to use community development block grants, which we have money in hand right now, to be able to demolish a portion of the building, the big building, and restore the smaller building. And the reason that was what we wanted to do is in 2016, when the school was owned by the Horry County Schools, Hurricane Matthew ripped the roof off of the front part of that building, the majority of the roof off, and then it fell back down. And since that time, it's kind of been in that status where the weather has been affecting it. And kind of the worst thing for that building is every bit of that roof membrane is asbestos. So you've got a sort of a toxic material that has to be abated before you can do any work on that building. And normally, if it's in the drywall or in the sheetrock or something like that, you can remove that and not really affect the integrity of the building. When it's in a roof membrane, you have to remove the entire thing. The cost for abating that asbestos in that building were several $100,000 just to remove the asbestos. The cost for demolition were $250,000. So our intent was to demolish some, save some, but we were using federal money for that. And so to use federal money, you had to go through Archives and History, the state Archives and History. And because that school is an equalization school, they would not let us use federal money to do demolition in any part. So the fact that the building is unsafe and sits there in the condition that it's in was not relevant to the fact that they would not let us remove it and then pay tribute to or pay homage to the school in another way. So what we're looking for now is a funding source to allow us to be able to do the demolition and then proceed with some tribute. And Mr. McQueen and I have spoken about something on site that would pay homage to the history of the school, the very important history of the school, to the area and to the city itself. And how we do that, I don't think we've defined yet. But we have to figure out a way to move forward and remove that blight and the unsafe structure from the community. It really is, it's holding back everything that can be done there. And like I said, we've got 10 acres of property that we need to master plan and figure out what we're going to do to be the biggest benefit to that community that the community wants as well. So we've always talked about doing a community center there, a public aspect to it, but then maybe building something around it that could also bolster and improve the community as well. And that's where we are now. We have Leolio Architects is on board. We've procured them for the city to help us with that master planning effort. COVID has delayed that. We like to have public meetings and sort of talk to the community and find out what they want. With COVID, that's very difficult to be able to do, and we're still trying to figure out what the next step is going to be. But the first thing we have to do is figure out a funding source to be able to get rid of that building before it becomes a bigger problem for the community in their areas.
Yeah, I remember Brother Eric, you may be going where I'm going. Go ahead.
Because it's definitely a hazard. It's a health hazard there.
It is.
With the asbestos, especially in the membrane area of the roof. I think, and I don't want to take up the time here to explore other options because you've already said what your limitations were in terms of getting funding and stuff like that. But I think it's the city and especially the community needs to be aware of the hazard that's there right now. Okay, I think I'm gonna use the word urgency. I think this is almost a sense of urgency because a lot of people are not aware of the airborne of the asbestos, because when that hurricane came, it did a lot of disruption. Okay, sun has already dried a lot of stuff, so now we're talking about some airborne with the high winds and stuff like that, and a lot of children in that area, and people just don't know. I think it's lack of knowledge or lack of being informed that makes it so dangerous.
We're pretty confident that the danger is contained within the building. It's considered friable, which means it's falling. If it's falling at all, it's falling downward into the building. It's not blowing with the wind. It's inside the building. But no one should go in that building. We've had some trespassers in there. We've had some homeless folks living in there. We've boarded it up. We continuously board it up. When we went in as a staff to do an assessment early on, we had to wear the full Tyvek suit, hazmat suits with the respirators. It not only is there asbestos in there, there's also mold in there, just from it being exposed to the elements. So the first step, we've got to remove the asbestos and then sort of try to tackle the demolition of that building. Originally, we'd hoped to save the small building, which also contains asbestos, but it's in much better shape. But we were not even able to use federal funds to save that building without a plan for the overall building. So it really limited what we could do and how we could do it without that extra source of funding.
I think it would be important, to Brother Elwood's point, and I don't know if this is something that's on your plan, but that communication to the communities that gathered some years ago for kind of like a brain trust, a community brain trust to figure out what could be done. And I think that the community center idea was top of mind with a lot of people, and there was definitely a question in the thread, but you've already answered it. And so, just at least communicating the fact that it is a biohazard right now. It's a community hazard, and something that is there's some plans in the making to make sure that that area remains safe, that the building is not to be used for any reason, and also just what some future planning, or maybe even revisiting some of the ideas that were on the table from all of the planning activities and the communication activities that we did. I mean, I was a part of that. I think Brother Edward, I don't know if you were there or not, but there were some amazing meetings. Yeah, they were amazing meetings. So maybe just kind of revisiting that and just giving people an update will kind of, I won't say fix the problem or fix the misconceptions or the miseducation, but it will give them some idea of what we know about that building, and so what needs to happen next.
And I do see a comment there too about the community center. I want to make sure that is still part of the planning for that area. We definitely that has never left the table. That it just, how do we get to that point is the question.
Yeah, kudos to our mayor who was driving all of these forums that we had. I think we had about 3 or 4 forums, very comprehensive. A lot of question Q&As and illustrations, demonstrations that were brought forth. She did an excellent job in getting out the information of what to do with Whittemore Elementary School. So,
absolutely
appreciate that.
So another area that we want to definitely touch is new commercial opportunities. So what's going on? Is it downtown Conway, all over Conway, around town in our city? What's happening?
Well, if I can, first, what I'd like to tell you is, one of the things the reason I put population and residential at the front is because they're the key to commercial. One of the things we hear all the time, we see it on social media, is we need a blank in Conway. We need a Publix. We need a Trader Joe's, a Whole Foods, an Outback, a Lowe's, a Hobby Lobby. We hear all that, and we agree we'd love all those things in Conway. But all of those national retailers, they're 100% look at demographics. They look at your population numbers and they look at your per capita income. And our population numbers are great. We every time we hit a milestone like 25,000 or 30,000, it gets us into a new opportunity for national retailers. But our per capita income right now is so low that we do not attract a lot of those retailers. We will not get a Publix with our per capita income the way it is. Our per capita income right now is about $21,000. To give you a comparison, Mount Pleasant's is $55,000. That is the average. That is the median income per person in your city. So as long as ours is where it is, we will not get those big, high-profile national retailers.
What did you say our median income is again?
21,000 per capita. That's our per capita.
Per capita, yeah.
Yeah. And there's a variety of reasons for that. It is getting better. If you think about the folks that are moving here, a lot of them are retirees that are coming here on a fixed income. That does not help our per capita income generally. But as the university continues to grow and as we can retain some of the talent coming out of Coastal, that will help our per capita income. That is one of the reasons we really work hard with them to provide an environment. Those students don't want to go anywhere. We want them to stay here and invest their education in our community. That helps the per capita income over time. And you're right. We touched on downtown, but what we have is we also have a unique situation where every time we try to bring in a national retailer, they can look 5 miles down the road and see a greener pasture. They're ignoring the fact that we've got almost 30,000 people here in Conway that need these things. They can look at Carolina Forest and see a higher per capita income and a similar population. A lot of those retailers also look at Carolina Forest and they look down the street at Myrtle Beach 5 miles down the road, and they've got a higher per capita income, similar population, and 20 million tourists. So when we try to bring someone in, they get sort of lost in the glitz and glam of the beach, and they have to work their way back to us, which is why you typically will see us get something like a McAllister's after the beach has several, or us get, those sort of things come to us after the other opportunities have come, because they've had to exhaust their Grand Strand population and demographics before they come to us. It's sort of an unfortunate thing with our location. We can't offer those 20 million tourists. So we have to be sort of the ancillary beneficiary of those national retailers. But our downtown is the exception to that, because our downtown is a unique product that you cannot get anywhere else at the Grand Strand. The history, the authenticity, even our low rents. Our downtown has some extremely low rents for what you can get, and you can it's sort of a business incubator on its own just because of that. So it is what it is. It's what we struggle with. But if you are a person, entrepreneur right now looking at opening a business, you've got a good business model and a good business idea, there's a home for you in downtown to really see if you can make it. And that's because our rents are a fraction of what they are at the beach. And that really is, one of those saving graces about what makes us unique. And you still have that super authenticity. And we are seeing, I'm jumping around here a little bit, but we love our tourists. We love our visitors, of course, but we cater to our residents first. The businesses that we seek, the ones that we go out and we really work toward, are ones that make our lives easier. And we see that when you have a bridge closure and you see the businesses stay strong, you don't see businesses close. When you've got a pandemic like we have right now, and you see the businesses pull together and the residents support those businesses, you see sort of the strength and integrity of our business community. It is not based on tourists, it's based on residents. So, that is a unique opportunity for us, because today and this year especially, we are seeing more vehicles in downtown that are tourists, that are picking up on what we're offering our residents and helping kind of expand what we're offering to our folks. So, we're reaching that milestone where if you cater to your residents and you do everything you can to make the city a beautiful place for them, the tourists are going to want to be part of it. And that's where we are today. And that's exciting.
Adam, how is the city tackling the issue of the lack of grocery stores in our area? That's a big deal.
It is. And we have a food desert in certain areas of the city. We have 3 or 4 Food Lions in the city. We've got 2 Aldi, we've got a Walmart, and we've got the IGA, and that's it for our food. Now I say that's it. That sounds like a lot of grocery stores until you look at the geographics of the city. Correct. And you've got an entire segment of the city that is not within a 5-mile radius of a grocery store. And I think it's a half-mile radius is what they say you're supposed to be, because you're supposed to be able to walk to a grocery store and not have a food desert. We have that area between 701 South Food Lion and sort of Walmart on the western side of North Conway, that there is not a grocery store since Harvey's and Bilo closed. Mm-hmm. I think there is a demand. The problem still is demographics. There is not a grocery store right now catering to our demographics. That doesn't mean there's not going to be, but I think for now we're fine. We're looking. Our Chamber of Commerce looks constantly and caters to every grocery store out there, trying to find one. I think they've exhausted every possible one they could find for the Harvey space, and no one was interested. So it's probably going to take a little bit more growth coming to a different area of the city to get another one out there on 378 somewhere, and it'll probably be a new grocery store when it comes.
I don't know if you are privy to answering this or not, but where Harvey's was, right there on 501, has that been processed in terms of somebody buying it, or somebody's what new entity is going? Yeah,
we have plans. There's an existing large auto body shop on the north side of Church Street that has plans they've submitted for that site, and it'll be their location. I don't know if the sale has been consummated yet, but I do know we're reviewing some plans for that site right now. So as of right now, it will not be a food store at all. It will be some sort of automotive user.
Okay. Well, I know we have just a few minutes left in the show. We're going to move on to just a couple of other comments that kind of fall under other issues, and we invite the community, the current viewers, to please post your questions now if you have anything that you would like for Adam to cover while he's with us. And I'm sure we'll have him back at another time, but no better time than the present. So one of the other questions, and I tell you, we're going to have to get Priscilla to write some talking points for our shows because she has some great questions. But she has another question. Yes. What is the city doing to conduct repairs at Smith Jones Recreation Center?
So, all right. So the money that we were going to use to build the community center that we were handcuffed with because of the historic nature of the building, we're using that money now to repair the pool. Again, it's federal money, so it's taking us longer than we would like to spend that money. We'd hope to have the pool open by this season. It's not looking very good. But we were an entitlement community in partnership with the county and with Myrtle Beach, which meant we got a certain amount of funds every year from HUD to spend on things like a pool at Smith Jones. We have about $300,000 left in that account that we want to spend to fix the Smith Jones pool and then explore the ability of putting a splash pad at Smith Jones with that pool. So we want to not just repair the pool, but also enhance it. However, I will tell you this, the enhancement with the splash pad is not what is holding us up. It is literally the red tape of spending federal money. And as soon as we can get the green light to do it, we are ready to roll. It's not as easy as just hiring a pool contractor and getting them out there to fix it. If that were the case, it would be done. We literally have to do environmental reviews. We have to bring in an engineer and then move forward with bidding out the process to a pool company. So because you're using federal money, it's hard to explain that it's a hard thing to spend money when it's there. I wish federal money has far too much red tape attached to it. It makes it very hard to spend.
Mm-hmm. Okay. There's another comment that's come in. Having all these stores are nice, but what we need is a hospital or some outlet for immediate health care. Has anything like that hit the table as far as a prospect that you know of?
Absolutely. We've been working very hard with Conway Medical Center to try to bring a version of the hospital to this side of the river. And we've worked with other healthcare partners as well to try to do the same thing. So we see that same need, especially during the flood. It was very, very apparent that having the only hospital in the city, only hospital servicing this side of the county on that side of the river was not a long-term solution. With the growth that we have and with the limitations caused by flooding, we know that we need a hospital on this side of the city, and we are working very hard to get one. That is one of our top priorities. And it can be a very good redevelopment opportunity as well for some areas that are not well performing, is to bring medical users to that area. That is definitely one of the things we're working at. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, if people want to keep up with what's going on with the City of Conway, all the developments and all the work you all are doing to better our communities, they can visit your Facebook page. Is that correct?
That's the best way to stay in tune with what we're doing. And if you have any questions, feel free to message us through our Facebook Messenger app. If I answer it, you're going to get one type of answer. If our public information officers, you'll get another type of answer. And then you can guess which one was me. Because usually if you complain about something, you'll probably get a snarky answer from me, unless I have a good answer for you. But seriously, we are very responsive to our Facebook page, and we really do try to keep the public as informed as possible through that venue. So if you have any questions, feel free to message us that way. You can also shoot me an email or just drop by City Hall. My email address is my first initial last name, aemrick@cityofconway.com. Drop by City Hall if you want to, and if I'm not here, I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But there's always someone here to be able to help you if we can, and we really do. I love these dialogues. I'd much rather try to answer a question with the real facts than try to put out fires when they're misanswered.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Miss Priscilla says, thank you for the information. Very informative. And thank you, Miss Priscilla, for being so engaged in the conversation today. Great questions. We appreciate it. And we'd like to thank all of our viewers, Carlos Parker, Maria Filomena. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Willie Pennington, Bishop Pennington was watching today. I'm not sure where you're from, but thank you for watching. I don't believe I've ever seen that name before. Do you know Bishop Pennington, Brother Edward?
That one yet.
Okay, Ronald Phillips, thank you so much for watching. Just a few we wanted to name, and we do appreciate you all being in the thread. And Adam, thank you so much for being a part of the show today. We really do appreciate it. I'm sure we'll call on you.
I owe you a couple.
I'm sure Brother Edward's going to take you up on that for sure. Yes, Miranda Sherman, thank you so much for watching. Good show, very informative. And I believe Miranda's watching out of Florida. So thank you very much.
Wow.
She's from Bucksport, but she's watching out of Florida. So very good. Thank you so much for your support.
Bucksport. I know there's a few comments we just couldn't get to. Some were sent by email, some were sent by text. But we're going to have. If you forward those to me, I'll answer.
If you forward those to me, Mr. McQueen, I'll answer them.
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah,
awesome.
Absolutely.
That's how you do it. All right. So again, thank you so much. We really do appreciate it. And to all of you, we are still developing our show for, tell Adam I'm Natasha's sister. Miranda's Natasha's sister. Natasha Sherman.
She was supposed to ask the easy questions.
If we're still working on our show for next week, so just stay tuned. Show promotions will come out really soon. And, we hope that you all enjoyed the broadcast tonight. I certainly did. It's always good to find out what's going on around town and in our city. Conway, South Carolina, Conway strong, right? So
that's right.
Yeah. So thank you all for tuning in. Brother Elwood, you have the last word.
And this projected growth that you just gave out to us, that's astounding, okay? I mean, that's something to really start thinking about. And this new housing development, the new housing that's coming up, yet our per capita income is like $21,000. It's kind of mind-boggling when the homes are starting at $200,000, $189,000, $190,000, and the people's income is like $21,000. I mean, that's a median. I know you got a high and a low because of median. And you didn't have an average to give us, but I think we can use the median. But at $21,000, that's pretty low. So to me, that says that gentrification is probably the bulk of that. Okay, if you're building a $200,000 home, I'm saying $195,000, what I've seen, and our median income is $21,000, and you gotta have 10% down, right? So that's $20,000 right there for a $200,000 home. So maybe when we get you back on our show again, you can update us, see how these things are coming about like that, and I'm certainly. People are going to be asking questions with comments and stuff like that. So,
well, and I'll tell you the overwhelming theme here is we need to make sure we preserve what makes Conway Conway as we continue to grow, and that will be probably the biggest challenge that we face for the next 20 years.
Mm-hmm. All right, Adam, when you come back, will you be able to talk about public safety at all?
Sure.
Okay. All right. We'll put that on the list. We need to have Adam back maybe once a month at least. To talk to us. Yeah,
whenever's good for you. I'm happy to do it.
We gotta have you more frequently. The way Conway is growing, we gotta have you.
Especially if there's some hot new development we need to know about. Yeah,
right. Yeah. So we gotta grow out along with it.
Yeah.
We've got some really neat ideas for downtown too that are going to continue to enhance what we do. If you want, someday I'll come on and we'll just do a show on that. What we're doing downtown. So. There's some pretty pictures and things like that that'll be a lot of fun.
Sounds good.
Absolutely.
All right.
Sounds good.
Yeah, sounds real good. Well, again, thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We really do appreciate your time. And we will see you next week, 7 p.m. Watch out for show announcements on Facebook and also on wcmagazine.net. Please visit their website for rebroadcast if you want to go back and watch past shows, but also you can support our sponsors. From that page, click on their ads and it takes you straight to their websites. And also, if you'd like to drop us some information about possibly advertising with World Community Magazine, or if you have a news tip that we can follow. Remember, this is around town in your city, so let us know what's going on so that we can follow up on that. All right. So thank you all very much. We really do appreciate it. Have a good night.
Thank you.
All right. See you next week.
Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook with your host, Edward McQueen and April Garner.